All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, April 8th, 2024. I don't know about you guys, but I can't believe it's already April. Welcome to All Things Cruises. I'm super excited to have our special guest today. She is I'll have her announce what she's going over. But for those of you guys that don't know her, I would love for you guys to meet one of my dear agents. Absolutely love her to pieces. Stacy Wren. She is an IATAN card holder. She's a silver. She books a ton of stuff, came into the business with a lot of knowledge, but didn't come into the business with a lot of cruise background. And one of the things that I love about her was that she had no fear diving into a topic that she didn't know about. And now, you guys, she is teaching trainings on it. She is killing it in the cruise market. Stacy, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, everybody. Woo.
Love
Thanks,
it. Well,
Janelle,
take it
for waving
away.
back at me. I love when I see faces and not names on a black box. That's awesome. Because remember, we don't want to be silent agents. So we need to get ourselves on camera so we can get ourselves on camera with our clients. That's how we're going to make money. So it doesn't matter how much you look like caca this morning. Let's get on camera and get used to interacting with our clients. My name is Stacy Wren. I have been with Archer and Evolution for 26 months now, just over 2 years. I'm a two-time IATAN card earner, and I book a ton of travel. I primarily book travel, and I'm very proud that in March, I was on the top 10 travel booker commission earners for Archer and Evolution. So that was a huge win and fun moment to see my name pop up there. And everything that we're going to go over today, if I could do it, you could do it. Most of what I'm going to tell you, I would say 95% has been self-taught. And it has been trial and error, and also calling the cruise lines and getting invested with the cruise lines, with their trainings, and having them on speed dial on my phone. So I know exactly when all the cruise lines are open. I know that Norwegian has a groups department that's closed on Sundays, but Royal is open on Sundays. And so once you get used to calling and teaching yourself directly with the cruise lines, you'll be much more confident in what you're going to learn. So today we are going to talk about charity cruises, raising money for nonprofit organizations through cruises. And this is basically group cruising. That's what it is in a nutshell. So it's group cruising where you get an extra perk or benefit when you group cruise, and then that is given to a nonprofit or a charity of the client's choosing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're just going to go over some basics. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see my screen? I can't see you, so I'm going to assume that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So let's just start with Norwegian, because Norwegian is a great cruise line for groups. You only need 5 staterooms to book a Norwegian cruise line, and they have a built-in program that earns $100 onboard credit for 5 staterooms that you book. So on a group with Norwegian, you can book 5 staterooms, and you can earn yourself a TC credit, which we'll go over. Extra group amenities, that's the $100 onboard credit, and you get support from the groups department. Also, when you're booking group cruises with Norwegian, you can have up to 15% off of the cruise fares, depending on how far in advance you book. So if you book in 6 months, you're probably going to get a 5% discount off of the retail rate. If you book in 8 months and 12 months and beyond, you can get 10 to 15% off. So not only do you have select reserved pricing for your guests, you have a discount, and then for every 5 rooms that's booked, Norwegian will give the client, the cabin, each cabin, $100 onboard credit. So to turn that onboard credit back into a donation for a charity. So when I book groups on Norwegian, I promote it as booking on Norwegian with a group, and for every cabin that's booked, assuming we have 5 cabins, $100 donation will go back to a charity of your choosing. So I personally do not offer for the client to keep the onboard credit. I don't even tell them about it. I just tell them that for every cabin that's booked, a donation of $100 will go back to a nonprofit of their choice. So really, nonprofit cruising is group cruising, where you allocate the bonus amenity to be given back to a nonprofit versus directly to the client. So this is Norwegian. I'm going to show you another flyer from Norwegian. Why book an infinity group? So you can earn tour conductor credits. So 10 berths, and berths are numbers of people. Berth equals a human equals 1 TC, or 1 tour conductor credit. So if you have those 5 cabins and they're filled with 2 people each, that will get you a tour conductor credit. And a tour conductor credit is the value of the most cabins booked. So let's say, for example, you're booking an Alaska cruise and you have 5 cabins, and the base rate is $2,000 per person plus port taxes and fees. If you book 10 people at $2,000, you yourself are going to be earning an additional $2,000 on top of your commission that is paid for the cruise cabin. So group cruising is extremely lucrative, as are groups in general in travel. And some people will offer to donate that TC credit back to a charity. So you can give some part of your commission earnings back to a nonprofit in order to incentivize. I don't do that. I keep all of my money, and I just offer the $100 onboard credit because I'm not in the position to just be giving away a lot of money, right? I need to be making money, and my time and my effort on booking this group cruise is worth it. So for every 10 berths, you get 1 TC credit. So that's another great reason why you should book group cruises. And then you can have additional amenities, and see down here at the bottom, it says, plus you can select 1 bonus amenity. So here's the onboard credit, and right here on number 3, it's listed as a fundraising credit. So you can have it as bonus commission, an onboard credit for the guests to spend, fundraising credit, and so on and so forth. So when I'm, like I said, when I'm booking groups, if I know it's going to be a fundraising effort, I just let them know that for every cabin that's going to be booked, $100 will be given to a nonprofit of their choice. This is great because Norwegian handles this process. Norwegian and Royal take care of it. Everything is set up on the back end, and the donation goes from the cruise line directly to the nonprofit. So I don't have to be exchanging money or receiving extra commission from the cruise line, counting that on my taxes, and then giving it out again, right? The idea is to make things as seamless and as easy as possible. And that's why most of the charity cruises that I book are with Norwegian and Royal, because they have the infrastructure built to help me sell this, right? I'm not trying to make it easy, harder on myself. So let's look at when you're group cruising. Here is another example of what can be included with Norwegian. So you can have right here in the middle, location preference, and number of guests attending any onboard events. So if they want to go to a certain show or a theater event or a music thing, you can have preferential seating. You can have preferred days and times. Like if you were to block out the, what is it? It's like the race cars that they have on top of the ship. You can select specific times just for your group. Everyone can sit together for dinner. There's a lot of different things that you can do as a group when you're cruising. And you can have additional efforts for fundraising. So if people wanted to go and have a silent auction or a meeting or a networking event, or to raise additional funds, that can all come from group cruising, which just overall supports the effort to raise money. Hold on 1 second. I just have to bring my screen down just a little bit here. All right, so here is an example of Royal Caribbean. So Royal Caribbean will assign gap points, which is an additional, another word for the bonus amenity. So on Norwegian, it's 5 cabins that you need to book, and on Royal Caribbean, it's 8 cabins that you need to book. So for 8 cabins, you can have a $50 onboard credit that is given to each cabin, and that can either be assigned for them to spend on board, or you can allocate that back to a nonprofit of their choosing. So that's Royal Caribbean. I have not seen this with Virgin Voyages. I've mainly used it with Norwegian and Royal Caribbean. And another one that I know that does it is Carnival. Here's an example, make this bigger for you, of what a charitable contribution form would be when you're filling this out for a nonprofit post sailing. So you can put the booking number, my name, my phone number, and then you have to attach actual internal revenue documents showing that the nonprofit is a 501c3 nonprofit. And that's how Carnival accepts that the donation will go back to them. So for Carnival, they only donate $4 per person per day, up to 2 guests per stateroom. So Carnival does have this program in place, but they are much smaller on the donation field than, let's say, Norwegian or, another higher end cruise ship. The reason that I love Norwegian is because the average cost per person is a lot more than Carnival. So when I'm selling Alaska and all these things, like I told you, which are $2,000, $3,000 per person, that's just increasing my commission. And the donation is actually higher with Norwegian versus Carnival and Royal Caribbean. And then one last one that I know for sure does it, but I will say right now in a disclaimer that I don't know how much or the process, but is AMA Waterways. So if you're into river cruising, I was on a webinar with them one time where they were talking about how they can donate back to a nonprofit as an onboard credit when you take out a group with AMA Waterways. So I don't know the full logistics and I haven't booked it yet, but AMA Waterways is one of the premier lines for river cruising in Europe, Africa, and Egypt. So this is a highly, highly lucrative opportunity for you for group cruising and to donate back, because the AMA Waterways client most likely is going to be that philanthropist in your community that's already doing charitable acts. Most likely over 55 years old. They have the discretionary income and time to travel and cruise. So that just means everything goes up. It just raises up the dollar value. This is a group flyer that I had started with AMA Waterways and all of their marketing material. So they even offer discounts for groups per cabin, and you can put cabins on hold without even any monetary financial, you don't have to come out of pocket to put these cabins on hold. So to give you an idea about how lucrative AMA Waterways is, I'm going to show you an invoice that I have from one of my clients that's sailing this summer on June 30th. They're going to be going on this Rhines Castles and Swiss Alps that this flyer. I was able to get them right here in the center, $250 off per person as part of a group rate. They got 20% cruise savings, which is $2,200. And you can see the grand total down here at the bottom of this one cabin for 2 people is $19,599. And my commission here in the middle is $2,252. So group cruising, especially with the right line, is highly lucrative. If I was able to book 5 cabins at this rate at double occupancy, my commission would be $11,000 plus a tour conductor credit. And I certainly would not mind donating back a couple $100 per cabin to a nonprofit in the community. So these are all great things to think about when you're group cruising. I want to talk a little bit about, and I'll just go back to Norwegian, about putting group cruises on hold. So when you're group cruising, some things that you need to keep in mind is that the rate is not necessarily locked in without a group level deposit. It's usually $50 per stateroom. So if you have the extra money, you can put any number of cabins that you want, up to 99 cabins on hold at $50 per cabin, which is refundable up until the final payment date of the cruise. So that gives you leverage. Let's say it's April 8th right now, and I want to sell something for summer of 2025 in Alaska. I can pull those group cabins from Norwegian. I have up to 60 days to put a deposit down, which is $50 per person of a travel agent deposit. If I can do that, I can hold the cabins all the way up until, let's say, March of next year. So I can keep selling them. And as the retail rate goes up, my rate stays the same when I'm booking clients. And that really shows the level of difference on how much people pay last minute versus if I was to hold those cabins with a discount up to 15%. So if you can't put rooms on hold yourself, which is refundable, you can get a group together and they can put their deposit within 60 days. So you'll have those cabins on hold with the price locked in with Norwegian for 60 days, and it's 30 days with Royal Caribbean. So that's why you need to get familiar with the policies that each cruise line has, so you know when to tell your clients to do it. So if I have my cabins on hold for 60 days with Norwegian, I will tell my guests 30 days. So I never let the rope go out too far. I always try and get them to book as fast as possible. And then once that deposit is placed down, then they're locked in and they can make payments on their cruise. So when you're looking at group cruising, there's those two levels of deposit. One is the group level deposit, which typically travel agents will put down if they can, $50 per room, but the guest has to put down the full deposit, which could be anywhere from 125 to 250, depending on the cruise line and the sailing and where they're going and what time of year. So that's how to put cabins on hold. We talked about the TC credit. The onboard credit, or the extra bonus amenity for groups, is the donation. And the best place that I have found to find groups that want to get behind this program, and I'll show you some examples, are social groups. So people that already like to travel together, they're already in the mindset that they're going to be cruising, and just donating back to a nonprofit is the bonus. It's the cherry on the top, right? They're going to do it anyway. And it's a really easy sell. It's easy to get people to be a Pied Piper for you, and they can invite their friend and their friend and their cousin, and then before you know it, you build a group. If you want to reach out to nonprofits and get them on board to promote a cruise for you, that's another avenue that you can go to do a donation cruise, to go directly to a nonprofit and solicit them, like, let's partner. I would like to promote your charity in the community through a group cruise, and for every cabin that's booked, the cruise line will make a monetary donation back to your nonprofit. The tricky part with this comes in, and I've seen this a few times now, is that nonprofits are very hesitant because they don't want to think outside the box. They're used to government grants and funding and applying for different programs in order to get funding for their nonprofit. They're very siloed. And so if you can find one that is willing to think outside the box, I've heard questions like $100 is not really enough. What do we have to do to promote this cruise? How much money is it going to cost us? Marketing, who's going to take care of our clients? There's just a lot more red tape that goes involved when you're dealing with a nonprofit directly. And so let me show you some examples of, one second here. All right, so let me make this bigger. This is a nonprofit that I reached out to, Nevada Donor Network. They're based here in Nevada, and they support kidney, organ and tissue donation when someone passes away in the hospital. So they facilitate all of the donations that go to people that are on the wait list to get organs to survive. So I reached out to them, And I asked them if they were willing to partner on a cruise for Alaska this coming summer. And I started this in late spring last year. This is a flyer that we put out, and they were very generous because they pushed on social media and they set an email campaign to all of their supporters and their donors in order to help me get more exposure and more bookings. I also went to some of their staff meetings and I presented in person about cruising to Alaska. So you have to put in work when you're group cruising and you're trying to raise money for charity. This is one example where I went to a nonprofit directly. So another one is, this was on this group, No Racism in Schools. They went on a carnival sailing just this past February, and now they're going to be booking for next year. Next February 2025, they're going to go down to Fort Lauderdale. So they did book on Carnival, and they saw that not only was the donation level low, but I think their expectations of service and amenities wasn't met. So we moved over to Royal Caribbean, and now they're going to be cruising next year on the Liberty of the Seas. This is primarily, it's a nonprofit, but it's boosted up by a lot of people in the nonprofit that want to travel together. So I kind of consider it a social group in its own right, as opposed to just a nonprofit. Everyone knows each other already. And then here's another social group that's also run as a nonprofit, where they have fellowship weekends, and they're going to be going on the same sailing that I just showed you. But this is an example of a flyer that I put together on Canva that I would use to promote the group cruise and have the donation go back. So if you're interested in cruising and raising money for charity, my suggestion would be to start with social groups and really master the group process down first before you get into actually reaching out towards nonprofits. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I can take some questions.
Let's see. So one of the questions that you had is, where can we get these flyers?
Well, the cruise line has many flyers, like the ones I showed you for AMA Waterways. That came from AMA Waterways. Each cruise line has a back office portal that has flyers and marketing materials that you can customize right in their back office portal. And it's very simple by just putting your name, your business name, and your contact details. And sometimes you can upload the sailing. So they'll put the itinerary, the map. You can change the basic pricing. I've made some of mine on Canva myself, so I can include more details, but you don't have to spend money to get flyers for group cruising.
Let's see, Sid Laley, and I'm sorry if I say your guys' names wrong. The question is, does Disney do, since this is fundraising, I'm guessing they're asking, does Disney do any type of fundraising type cruises?
Not that I'm aware, but again, I'm not aware. I know Virgin Voyages does not, and I brought them potential to have a 250 cabin group, and they would not do it. So
okay, next question. Kathy asks, where did you locate the IRS statement letter?
I got it from the nonprofit directly. So I let them know, if you want to accept a donation, I need information back from you, including the IRS letter. And the reason, when I found out what to send, was I called the groups department. I had to allocate that bonus amenity towards a charitable donation. So you have to decide where that group amenity is going to go. Once I allocated it towards a charitable donation, the groups department gave me an email address to write to. I emailed them and said, this is the group number. I need to get the money set up to be transferred post-sailing. What information do you need from me? And so then they said, we need the name of the nonprofit, the tax documents, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I went back to the client and got it.
Okay, next question is, Angela, do you ever book the flights, or do you have them do their own?
When I book group cruises, whether they're charitable or not, I handle every client individually, and that's part of my service. So once a sailing and an itinerary is decided with the main client, whether it's the nonprofit directly or the Pied Piper, the leader of that social group, I make the marketing materials for them. They send it out and I put on there, please contact Stacy at XYZ in order to book. And because some people want to bring 4 people in a cabin, or they want an upgraded suite, and every scenario is different. So inside a group cruise, I always treat everybody individually, and that lets them work with me from a customer service base. So then they'll come back to me and book their own personal family vacation, or they'll bring another group that they're associated with, their pickleball or their, crocheting or whatever it is. So then when it comes to flights, I just kind of gauge it and see what the group wants to do. If they need assistance with flights, I'll help them. I don't overly push it because I don't make money in flights, but it's part of my service once they're booking a cruise cabin.
All right. Janelle asked, when you initially set up the group, do you start with any specific amount of cabins or can you change how many cabins to the group?
In order to have group space on hold, you need to hold the minimum amount. So for Norwegian, it would be 5, Royal Caribbean, it would be 8. You can add, but it might not necessarily be at the group rate, right? So you can take away, for example, the Nevada Donor Network cruise that I took out 50 cabins and I allocated how many balcony, how many ocean view, how many inside I want, but then I did not sell them all. So I released them back. You can always get rid of them as long as you do so in the right time frame, without penalty. But adding more on, it's just like prices change, right? So if you're going to take out group space, you should take out more than what you think you're going to need, because you can give it back for free. You might not be able to get it at the same price. Now, if somebody books outside of the group, because not all cabins and rates are included in group space. And an example is like when kids sail free on Royal Caribbean, you're not going to then get a group rate on that and a bonus amenity on that. That's dipping into too many pots. But if someone books a cabin that is outside the group for whatever reason, you may be able to transfer them inside of your group, and then they can qualify for that bonus amenity, which is then the charitable donation. And there have been a couple instances where people book with the group that I had, but I wasn't able to move them into a group, like they had a suite and all these different little intricacies. I just donated $50 off of my commission because I didn't want to go back and be like, well, this one person, they're not going to get in the group and I'm not going to be able to do it. It's not worth it, right? Because if that person's booking a suite that doesn't have a group rate, then that's probably a better ideal client than one of the people inside the group. So you kind of have to roll with the punches.
Next question is, does this work with churches?
Mm-hmm. Churches and schools are nonprofit organizations by default. So a church is a great way because they're already traveling together. Many churches travel together and they have an audience right in front of them every week, plus email and advertising to their members. And the money goes right back to the church. So the church is a great vehicle to get in front of people and do this.
All right. Bridget and Kim Bailey, they both have similar questions. But I'll read Bridget's first. It says, did you say earlier that you put down the amount for holding the rooms? And then Kim asked, do you personally put a travel agent deposit down on your group or just stick to the 30 to 60-day booking window for the group? So I think they're pretty synonymous questions.
It kind of depends on what your target is for this group. So if let's say 2025 summer, I want to start selling Alaska because it's one of the destinations that I sell the most. I can go pull group space and put a group level deposit of my own credit card. And I've done this before where I'll pull a certain number of cabins and I'll put $50 on each one to hold it. And that gives me all the way from April 8th today till, let's say, March of next year to just sell, sell, sell. And it could be Krista and her family. It could be my doctor, all different strangers, and they're all booking under a group rate. And I can promote a nonprofit even that way that I want to donate to, like sail to Alaska and support the Red Cross of Henderson, Nevada, or Las Vegas, and then I can just allocate that money direct. And people want to go to Alaska, they want a vacation, and they want to do good. So it doesn't have to be everybody coming together collectively and saying, oh yeah, do you want to donate to the Easter Seals or the Boy Scouts? Or, I can just pick a charity that I want to support, put together a group cruise, and I have put down $50 per cabin to hold it and to give myself that window to sell. As long as I release them in a certain time, the money is refundable and it comes right back to me for whatever I don't sell. And then as I put actual guest deposits on those cabins, that $50 comes back to me for each one, right? So either way, you either sell them or get rid of them, your money is coming back to you. It's not held for life. The other way you can do is to just hold it for 30 or 60 days or however long, and then you got to sell it, and people got to put their deposit or else you lose those rooms. So it kind of depends. On Virgin Voyages, when you're booking group cruises, the deposit amount is 20% of the total cruise fare, whereas Norwegian it's 125 or Royal it's $100. So it's much more of a commitment on Virgin Voyages to get people to book into a group. It's 20%. And the travel agent deposit for me to hold those cabins, like I just explained, is also 20%. So they don't give travel agents any discount to hold and then sell. So Virgin, you gotta be careful. You only get 30 days and everyone has to put their deposit down. Now I've held a group on Virgin for 30 days, sold a couple cabins, and then I canceled that group and made a new group because luckily the pricing was the same and I transferred my cabins into there. I did that 3 or 4 times, but then it just gets too complicated. So, you have to know like who's going to be in. Are you just holding group space to sell? Randomly to random people at a lower price? Or do you have the group kind of formed already? If you have the group formed already, and you have people on board, then just hold it for 30 or 60 days. Don't put your money down and tell everybody you have this amount of time to put your deposit, and that's it.
To add on to that, I know one of the issues that some people run into, and maybe you can discuss this, is when people do affinity groups and they do the $50 deposit, some cruise lines and some cruise line, like I find that it's different with each one, but can you talk about when the price is actually locked in? You can build a group,
so
but
I went through this with Carnival. When I hold group space on Royal and Norwegian, it's locked in. So once I take the cabins and the clock starts ticking, 30 days for them to put the deposit, the price is locked in, or 60 days. Or when I put $50 per cabin of my own and I hold it, the price is locked in. Now, Carnival, it was not that way. I held group space and the price and the cabin location was not locked in until they put the full deposit, but they only could put $50 in order to lock in like a cabin on the ship. And then they had to put another $50 per person to lock in their actual balcony cabin. And you have to understand the timeline that each cruise line has really and what is involved and when things are locked in. Because I was telling everybody on Carnival that was coming that they were going to get a balcony cabin. Well, that's not the case. I let them put $50 down, which is also not a good move because that's no skin in the game, right? You want a balcony cabin, you want a group cruise, it's $100 per person or 125, whatever it is. They have to come to the table and then they lock in their balcony cabin. So I kind of like had to flub my way through that because I didn't really understand Carnival's group pricing timeline.
And I know some, you have to, you put the deposit down, but until you actually put a name until you birth a cabin, you know, sometimes those
Yeah.
rates can.
So if you put a deposit, let's say on Norwegian of $125 per person, you have 30 days, I think. There's some amount of time to put their name on it. If you don't do that, you lose the cabin and they get rid of it. So it comes out of your total count that you have. So you can't put a name on it until you're really certain that they're going to be depositing, because that could take inventory out of your total allotment that you need maybe for somebody else. So you need to call the groups department and ask them, what are my timelines and when, okay, I'm gonna deposit this cabin. What other information do you need from me to get it locked in? You know, and one of the bonuses is that if you don't sell all 5 cabins or 8 cabins or however many, that doesn't change the pricing for the people that have booked already. So like in that Alma Waterways scenario, I pulled 5 cabins and I only sold 2. So with Alma Waterways, I didn't have to put up any money to hold 5 cabins, but I did not sell the other 3, and that did not affect the $250 discount that my clients got. And I still am making almost $5,000 for 4 people. So, you know, that's a big win. But that's one perk that all cruise lines try to push, is that your clients won't be penalized if you don't sell all the cabins in the group. You know, they still want you to try. Right? 'Cause
Yeah,
bringing them
yep.
8 out of 10 is a lot better than you not trying and you only selling 2 or 1.
Let's see. How soon after someone books outside the group can you move or add them to the group?
Immediately if it applies. So that's something that you have to call the cruise line. I'll give you an example. I have a family that's going to Alaska in September. It's 6 different cabins, 2 persons, 2 persons, 2 persons, 3, because they wouldn't allow me to book 3 people in a cabin inside the group, and then 2 adults and 2 kids. So these 3 were in a group, and then these 2 had to book outside the group. And so then I got another two clients that came to me and they said they want to go to Alaska in September. And I said, oh, I have this amazing pricing on this specific week. So I was able to include these strangers with these 3 people to make 5. So I got a group, and then these 2 are booked outside of it and they're not allowed to move them in. So that's the tricky part with groups, is that when you're dealing with everyone individually booking them, they all have a different scenario. Well, I want to bring my 2 kids, but my 1 kid has to have his own bed, or I want this or that, or so it's not always cookie cutter where you take group space and then everybody fits in and it's 2 adults in 1 cabin and it's easy peasy, you know, and that's when you start to really learn the intricacies of the cruise line, because then you got to go back and, you know, tell the clients they may not be included in the group. And just speaking on group cruising as a whole, whether it's a charity donation or not, I don't necessarily come to the table with the bonus amenity. So the gap points with Royal or the onboard credit with Norwegian. I just tell them, you can book as a group, we can lock in your pricing and availability, and there may be extra amenities based on how many cabins you book. That's what I say. I never tell them, and you're going to get $50 for every cabin that books on board credit, because some people might book inside cabins that don't apply to that rate. And so then they're not meeting the minimum. So I don't over promise anything until it's actually booked and the final payment due date has passed.
Let's see. Letitia and Pablo, I don't know which one it is or if it's both. I'm just going to answer this real quick. Where can I get the training for Norwegian? I have Norwegian recorded on my YouTube. And to go to the Norwegian site under trainings, and you guys can do your training there. Let's see. Wendy, how far in advance can you plan? My 30-year high school reunion coming up in 2026. And this sounds like a great idea with the charity money going to a scholarship for our school.
Yeah, as soon as the sailings are available, you can call the groups department. and ask them to pull group pricing. The sooner the better.
Okay, Kim's question is not necessarily about a group, but it is about fundraising. Kim's question is, do you ever have a church want to raffle off a cruise to raise money, and how do you handle that?
The answer is yes. The only time I was successful at doing this was with United Way, and they are a global nonprofit organization, and they actually kind of, I had a group on Royal where I was selling Alaska this summer, and the cabins were, let's say, $3,000 for two people. So we set the bidding at $3,000 so that could cover my cost of the booking. And then anything above $3,000 went back to United Way in a silent auction. So I didn't just pay out of pocket or donate a voucher where they could go on a random cruise and they don't get to deal with me. Like, I got a full cabin with full commission paid in full because they had to silent auction it off. So that's the only time that I've done it where it was actually success and money back in my pocket. I don't donate free trips and 3-day cruises and all that stuff. I just don't do it because I am not in the position to give away more than I'm taking in right now. Like, I'm trying to grow my business. And those aren't the type of clients that I want anyway. I want high net worth individuals that want to travel the world.
Okay, so Kim, a different Kim's. So the question, it literally just says affinity group, but I think they're asking like, so there's different types of groups. And I don't know if you can explain the difference between affinity. There's affinity, non-affinity, and then there's promotional and one other one I can't remember.
Affinity is the most popular one. And that means that they have some type of common denominator, which is usually me. Like, I'm booking them, or they're traveling together. They're part of the same family or set of friends or social group. So that's what affinity refers to. And that's the one that I usually book the most. And the cruise lines don't really question me on, is this really an affinity group? Do they really know each other? They just hope.
Yep. So non-affinity would mean people that there's no affiliation, non-affiliation. And then if you guys ever see promotional, just so you guys know, like on groups, if you see promotional, it's because that's the only time that I believe that's the only time that they'll have like the holidays, or it'll say like holiday group or holiday promotional. It's the only time that they'll have holiday dates available at group rates. So if you're looking to do like a Christmas or a New Year's or a Easter or Thanksgiving or whatever, you're going to have to go into holidays in order to see those bookings. What program do you use to keep all of this organized?
I use Excel. Yep.
Let's see.
Simple Excel spreadsheet.
Do you always have to put a deposit down when creating the groups, or only is on your own made up group? Oh, never mind. She said, got it. Thanks. Never mind. I can read ahead, I promise. See, I created a group with Norwegian. 2 different parties have booked the same cruise, but outside the group. Can I add them to our group? And is there a deadline to do that?
The deadline would be, I believe, final payment, and just call the groups department with Norwegian and give them both booking numbers, the group number and then the new one you want to move in, and see if it's applicable to move in. And like I said, sometimes I've booked people just by chance and they formed their own group. And then I said, great news, you now all have $100 extra onboard credit. They didn't know each other, but it just happened that way. And then I got that TC credit, that bonus.
All right, let's see. Next question is, what do you do when groups are closed or there's no more availability? So I'm wondering if this has to do with like when you go to do a group and they say there's no group space available.
I think you can still book them individually and then form the group once you have the correct number of cabins. Yeah, I mean, they can still sail as a group. It's just first come, first serve in terms of pricing, right? You don't necessarily have to have like a technical group.
I think this is also to do with, I know that I've come into it when doing groups, like you go to do it, they only allow so many groups on each cruise, like so many allocated groups on each. Oops. Did you hit a button, Stacy?
Nope.
Weird.
What happened?
Hold on. Oh, Wanda accidentally pushed a button. It's okay. Okay, um, so when like let's say you go to set up a group and they say, oh, there's no group space of no group space, it's because there's already too many groups allocated on that ship. Because let's say Icon of the Seas was a big one, right? When Icon of the Seas came out, um, it opened up to travel agents to book groups on or to reserve groups first. So then a bunch of cabins were saved, right, or deposited on or whatnot. And then when individuals went to go book things, there was no cabins available, or there was only so many groups that they could book. So in the event that you're trying to do a group, I would do individual cabins and then just keep checking back for group availability.
I'll share my screen really quick and just show, at least on Norwegian, I know an easy way how you can kind of see this. So inside Norwegian, I selected Navigator of the, or I'm sorry, Royal Caribbean. I selected Navigator of the Seas with a September 26th departure. And when I search it goes, come on. Hold on. Okay, it's thinking. Here we go. So you can see on Royal Caribbean here, individual best rate, and over here on the side, group prevailing rate. So for this sailing, they only have down here at the bottom, interior with virtual balcony for 2 cabins, and they have interior for 10 plus. So there is group space available for this sailing, and you can see that in advance. Let's go back and look at something maybe a little bit farther out. And also Norwegian has this capability as well once you get more comfortable with using their portal, but you can always call and they'll talk you through it and tell you how much each cabin costs. So if we're looking at March of 2025, here's a lot more group availability. They have 10 plus balconies at $842 per cabin or per person. And their regular prevailing rate is $811. So in this scenario, the group rate is technically higher. However, this NRD here means that it's a non-refundable deposit. So once they put their deposit down, that's it. Whereas the group space, the deposit, and the cabin is refundable. And some people don't, they want that flexibility. But there's a lot of balconies on here. There's a lot of ocean views and interior. So you can know in advance what sailings you can promote very easily on Royal Caribbean. Okay, I'm gonna stop share.
Let's see. Do you have a go-to pitch when approaching different charities or group?
Not necessarily. I just say, are you a nonprofit in the community that is looking to fundraise and think outside the box? Are you looking for fundraising opportunities? Have you thought about doing that through travel, through cruising? The pitch is much more difficult with nonprofits directly because you have to get them on board. Like I said, you have to bring them on board. They have to get it approved by their board. And they want to know how much skin in the game they have to put in. So how much marketing materials do they have to produce? How hard do they have to push to their supporters and their their donors? Social groups are a lot easier because they want to go and travel together, and then they can collectively select a nonprofit. But I don't necessarily have a go-to pitch.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take just the last couple. Let's see, if you have individually booked several cabins on a specific sailing, can you group them after booked to create a group to get the TA benefits?
You can, as long as they fall within the guidelines of the group. Yeah, group sailing.
All right, so the next one is I'm gonna answer Bridget's real fast. Bridget, we don't AARP, we don't work with that, but military, when you're doing the booking, you can always select any of the promotions. Make sure you put in their loyalty number, whatever cruise line they're on. And then some take military, some take the others. Let's see. Okay, so I love this question, but I'm gonna have Stacy answer. The question is, on the cruise line page, how do you find out what each category code means?
You can either click on it or give them a call.
So this is gonna be our last question, but I think people get really stuck on things that don't matter to us. Is that the most politically correct way to say that? You guys, if it says 4D, 4B, 4E, IE, IO, IS, LMNOP, it's internal coding. It's a foreign language. It is, but it doesn't mean anything to you. For them, it's internal coding. If you want to get to the nitty-gritty of it, it is coding that internally says what it shows, like where on the ship it's at. So 4D might be this little section of the cruise ship, and OS might be this section, but don't get caught up on what those letters and numbers mean. They don't mean anything to you. There's nothing you need to know about that. Now, if you're on Carnival and it says we'll upgrade to 8E, just know that 8E is better than 8J, but less than 8D. Like, it's just, don't get caught up in what those numbers and letters mean.
Well, I'll just kind of expand just a
Yeah.
little bit.
Mhm.
Once you start booking a lot, you'll learn what they mean and they will become somewhat they'll be helpful. Like the odd numbers on Royal, 1, 3, 5. So 1D, 3D, 5D mean that they can have triple occupancy, whereas 2, 4, 6D mean double occupancy. So when you go in and you're looking at pricing, you can quote the correct people. But when you call Royal and you get a quote from them, ask them, because they're going to tell you all these little numbers and stuff, and just say, well, what does that mean? And 2D is it's a better location on the ship than 4D. So they're both balconies, but 2D is like midship on the best deck, and that's what everybody wants. So you don't even have to know them. You can just look at the price and say, okay, this is 850, this is 825, it's probably a better location.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh no, they do for sure have meaning, but I don't want people to get so caught up. People want to create charts. And if you were to create charts, you would have to create what does a 4D mean on Oasis? What does 4D mean on, Liberty? What does 4D mean on, whatever, right? And that's what I mean. Like, don't get too caught up on that.
Yeah, your biggest struggle here is getting clients and growing your client base so that you can grow your bookings and make more money, right? The intricacies of how you book it, somebody's always available to help you with that by picking up the phone and calling. So your biggest hurdle is getting the clients.
All right, you guys, that is our hour. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Thank you so much, Stacy. I love you. I appreciate when you come on and you drop the mic. You let us all know about it. You guys, I will have this recording up shortly. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.